The Saints Row games are arguably the most popular alternative to Grand Theft Auto's similar brand of city-set open-world criminal mayhem, at least that I can think of. I'd been wanting to play both series long before I was old enough to, but while I jumped at the chance to pop GTA 5 into my PS4 on my 18th birthday, it wasn't until the announcement of the Saints Row reboot where I finally got the incentive to play and talk about those games too. I've done the first of those, now it's time for the second. By the way, I found out very recently that the old PlayStation 3 logo is the same one used for the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. I don't know why I felt compelled to point that out. Anyway, the original Saints Row was a fairly successful title released in 2006 as an Xbox 360 exclusive. The rest of the series went multi-platform, which is why me and many others have to start with its sequel. I'm surprised the original's never been ported or remastered to other consoles. I know I would have checked it out if I could have, but luckily with the exception of a couple of character relationships, your enjoyment of Saints Row 2's story isn't really affected by not playing the first. This series concerns the plights of street gang the 3rd Street Saints, with you in control of your own custom character referred to as the Boss. Apparently the first game ends with the boss caught in an explosion, with this one beginning in prison as they wake up from a 5-year coma. From there, the character creator is introduced, and holy crap, is this thing in depth! Personally, I'd have appreciated some preset options, because the amount of customization options is a bit overwhelming, and after a while I just wanted to get on with actually playing the game. Anywho, once you're done with that, new character Carlos breaks you out of jail, where it's revealed 3 new gangs and a corrupt corporation have taken over the city of Stillwater in the 3rd Street Saints' absence. So after reassembling what's left of and recruiting fresh blood to the Saints, you go to war with each rival gang in individual storylines to take back control of Stillwater. While I'll admit to not caring for cutscenes concerning solely your enemies, I found the rest of the story to be thoroughly entertaining thanks to some really likable characters and surprisingly excellent dialogue. Right from the opening with these 2 cops, I was really impressed how much personality and character even insignificant conversations held to make them very memorable. Each character has their own distinctive way with words that lend itself to lots of humor while still feeling natural and totally believable. There's tons of great interactions because of this quality, one of the standouts being in the middle of a mission messing with the in-game radio when Pierce changes the station to his liking and the boss winds up bickering with him about his taste in music.
I'm driving, we're gonna listen to whatever the hell I want.
Stuff like that just makes me smile. This game has a real charm about it, even with some of the enjoyably sadistic and genuinely disturbing moments the story contains. It does well to keep the tonal shifts always on the same page. A large part of this, I think, is due to the fact your custom character, who'd ordinarily be a blank slate stand-in for the player, has this very self-assertive, psychotic personality. A lot of open world games tend to have a disconnect with the character presented in the story and what you choose to do with them in the gameplay, but I do believe the person I get to do all these crazy side activities is the same guy who'd engage in the banter and does all the terrible things he does in the plot too. It's the ideal protagonist for a game like this and adds an interesting layer of underlying insanity to significant story beats. I'll admit a couple of those beats come at the expense of becoming really fond of characters like Carlos and Johnny Gat. Each of the different gang storylines contains some very dramatic moments, and because of the way they can affect those characters means they can't really appear as prominently in the other plot threads. So if you're like me and jump between the gang missions fairly regularly, they can't make as frequent an impression as the likes of Shaun D and Pierce. Seeing the boss unleash his rage in the things you do is a great element of the story, but I wish the moments which set off that rage left a little more impact on me. To be fair, this could be a side effect of not being able to play the first. I know Gat has always been a big part of the franchise, and apparently Carlos was the brother of someone I don't know, so I guess I can't really hold this game to blame too much. Especially with the bonus mission, which implies an interesting moral rise and fall of the 3rd Street Saints, which I'd like to have experienced fully. Look at it as a compliment, these characters are so well drawn, I want to spend more time with them. And it's made up for with some really well thought out and exciting action cutscenes for what can easily be labelled as nothing more than a GTA knockoff. Actually playing the game shows the Saints Row universe has a style all its own, almost like a really well made midnight cult movie or something. Although like most cult movies, this does have a few technical hiccups. Most noticeably, the voices in cutscenes are really damn quiet compared to the rest of the sound effects and dialogue in gameplay.
So you hit the docks like I asked?
Wait, what?
Good. Meet me at the abandoned mission house.
I'll be there.
It can be a little distracting, and there's not really a fix to it in the options as far as I can tell, so I always had to have the TV remote handy to turn the volume up or down when needs be. But anyway, there's more important matters to discuss now, such as the gameplay and the open world all of the action unfolds in. Very cleverly, the missions take you on a tour of most of Stillwater while leaving enough for the player to discover outside of the story. It gradually drip feeds you more of the environment over the course of the game, and the more it would, the clearer it became that this is one of the best open worlds I've ever played in. I mean, my god, the insane variety of architecture, multi-layered interiors, and locations capturing numerous facets of American culture make this city an absolute joy to explore. Once I finished the story, I spent a couple of sessions just looking around Stillwater, and seeing how much unique locales and hidden areas there was incredibly fulfilling and fun, even without finding any hidden CDs. This game has a secret island hidden off the map. There's nothing meaningful to do when you get there, but the satisfaction of the journey there and sense of discovery felt more than rewarding enough. And like any good open world, there's plenty of activities dotted across the main map to partake in, although they're not as optional as you may expect for a game like this. Along with your health and stamina, there's a third bar in the top right to take note of, which represents the amount of respect you have. It needs to be full to be able to play a story mission or stronghold, and you fill it up most efficiently by completing the myriad of activities. The respect goes down for every mission you play, so you'll have to keep working to get respect to continue with the main game. I was unsure about this at first, and I'll admit the final few altar missions do drag, partly thanks to how needing respect elongates the pacing so the main story feels considerably longer than it actually is. But for the most part I didn't mind too much. Earning respect from an activity doesn't take too long, and in the game world you can also gain respect by doing anything really. Killing gang members, pulling off vehicle stunts, doing this repetitive spray paint minigame, barely missing other cars, and if you change clothes enough, you'll increase the amount of respect you can earn with style points. It's essentially encouraging the player to play as chaotically as possible, and with the NPCs and in-game physics the way they are, it's very easy to orchestrate entertaining mayhem. I also loved driving as close to other cars as I could, especially when I did so in a satisfying streak. It made getting from point A to point B a lot more engaging. As for the minigames themselves, of which there are many, I really liked how there'd always be a little cutscene when you first played one setting up what you'd be doing. It's a nice touch of personality. And the majority of the activities themselves are a lot of fun, very wacky in concept, and mostly very unique from one another, which is impressive given there's a lot of them. I think my favourite would have to be Insurance Fraud, which is like a more over-the-top version of the Hall of Meat mode from the Skate games. The ongoing ones like Hitman and Chop Shop are good too, and I found myself deviating from matters to attend to them on occasion. And I'll admit, I wouldn't have been as willing to try every single one out if not for the respect system, so ultimately it does work very nicely and adds a lot of variety to the overall experience. But how is the core gameplay once you have the respect to play a mission? Well, as is par for the course with a game like this, there's a lot of driving to do. My GTA 5 experiences meant it took me a while to adjust to pressing X to accelerate instead of R2, but the cars do control well. Mostly. Some of these vehicles have a very loose steer and can be very hard to keep straight, especially the boats, good lord. Some of the optional races are really awkward due to this, but for the most part I enjoy the driving quite a bit, and although I discovered it very late in the game, I really appreciated the option to create a custom playlist of the in-game tracks I liked. For as much as the game promotes itself to be this real hip urban gangster experience, I had a real fondness for easy and classic FM to juxtapose the violent chaos with. Blasting Rise of the Valkyries whilst mowing down gang members feels perhaps a little too satisfying, but satisfying nevertheless. Anyway, once you arrive to the objective marker, you'll more often than not get into a gunfight or several. Nothing too out of the ordinary, except this game uniquely doesn't feature a cover system. There's a crouch option that can double as one, but most of the locations are specifically designed for you to run in guns a-blazing, always in the thick of the action. For as simple a change-up it may seem, it does change the dynamic of a normal shootout. You're rarely standing still. And it does play really well, part in thanks to your arsenal of weapons. I enjoyed switching between and using pretty much every gun and throwable weapon, all feeling different enough and satisfying to wield. I also enjoyed being able to pick up objects to throw at enemies or grabbing onto enemies for a human shield I could also chuck about. I'm a monster. For my melee weapon, I pretty much stuck to the samurai sword for the whole game, which is used in a couple of sword fights in the Ronin storyline. Those bits are alright once you get used to how it works, and there's some of the few boss fights to pose a slight challenge. If you come equipped to most battles with a rocket launcher, you can make an absolute mockery of some of the gang war climaxes. Sure, it's anticlimactic, but in the same way a game like Resi 4 can be impacted by your choice of resource, I kind of like it. It makes the player's investment in such things feel a bit more involved in the grand scheme of things. I can take or leave the strongholds, maybe if they'd been listed as an activity instead of a mission, as they feel there to pad out the runtime, which is already padded out with the activities. But to be fair, it's still the same energized gunplay with the same sense of momentum, it's just when it gets overwhelming, it's a bit more noticeably irritating. And yeah, I do have to admit the lack of cover can make matters borderline stressful. The thing with cover shooting is not only its practicality, but it gives you a moment to breathe and process the situation. Enemies can come to where you are and shoot you anyway, but it gives you a second's respite without taking you out of the energy of the moment. Without that option, as well as the wanted system which can have tons of gang members on your tail at once, barely giving you an opportunity to stop moving, thrilling, perhaps, but exhausting, yes. It doesn't help that the checkpoint system starts out pretty generous, but by the end I got sick of repeating certain several-minute sections multiple times. But there is that satisfaction, relief even, when you get past them. Looking at those difficulty spikes now from a distance, they're just a part of the experience, an adrenaline rush if you will. What I can say for certain is shooting out of a car is really impractical, and any mission requiring you to do that is beyond awkward. While you can get a closer aim on foot, you can't in a vehicle for some reason, and the aiming while trying to stay on the road feels pretty darn tacky. My previous grievances can somewhat be chalked up to the frustrations of playing through them, but this is absolutely a pain when you really need it to work, especially because of the wanted system where you can have tons of other cars to deal with too. There's mayhem, and then there's frustrating inconvenience. Truth be told, this isn't the most polished game out there. But I've gotta say, looking at the game as a whole, in spite of these flaws, the entertainment value is always high. And at the end of the day, if a game delivers plenty of fun, regardless of how refined it may be, then I'd say it's pretty darn good. Not to mention the wonderful open world, exciting characters, and its effortless weaving between bonkers and brutal just about manages to overshadow those moments of irritation. There's even a whole bevy of other minigames I had no idea about, so those should keep me coming back to this game on occasion. I can't say I love it as much as some other people seem to, but I still liked it very much, and I'm looking forward to checking out the rest of the series. But until then, thank you for watching,
And a good day to you.